You see that? Right there?
A little bit of a hot spot.
Yeah, I thought that thing just moved.
That is very weird.
Where'd it go?
From uncovering undeniable proof of the creature to being silenced by men in black suits, this is what Mireya Mayor tried to warn us about Bigfoot. And it's happening right now. Let's dive in. The last expedition. It all began here. As Russell was doing surveillance of the area the crew had chosen to investigate, he spotted a creature with blackish-brown fur through the lens of his camera. At first, he thought it was a bear, which was a common animal in the area. But then, something unexpected happened. The creature decided to stand up on 2 feet and disappeared into the woods. Seeing this, Russell was astonished and decided to show his partner. "Zach, that thing just stood up like you and I would. Look at that shit," Russell told his partner. Even after replaying the clip, Russell could still not believe what he had just seen. What he thought to be a bear, due to the fur, just stood up like a human being, turned around, and walked away. It's like the creature was squatting, perhaps spying on prey or Russell and his crew. Although bears could walk on 2 feet, they were not as stable as the creature they had seen. Excited by this, he tried to get another look at the animal and zoom in around the area to see if the creature would appear on the other side of the trees, but there was nothing to look at any longer. The creature was gone. Overjoyed by this new find, Russell decided to go to the area where he had spotted the creature and investigate more, perhaps find some other clues. After a while, Russell could not wait to show the crew the video he had just captured, and so he called everyone back to base camp.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Look at that.
Okay.
Now that doesn't look like a bear, does it?
No, it's crazy good.
That was upright.
Watch it again.
Yeah, it's walking. That is
Okay, right
walking
there?
upright.
They all gathered at base camp, where Russell had some exciting news to share. Everyone was eager to see what he discovered that made him call them back, so they got everything ready. Once Russell played the video, they could not believe their eyes. Russell told them, "I've been kind of glossing this area with a telescope for a while. It's a long way out, and I'm watching these clearings. Understand something. This is over a mile away, and I see what looks like a bear on the hillside. So check this out. It looks like a bear. At first, that's what I thought I was looking at. It's just a bear, until now. Watch this." Seeing the footage, Mireya was astonished. They had come so close to uncovering the truth. To give them a better look, Russell slowed down the speed of the video, and there it was. Bryce and Mireya, well versed in all things Bigfoot than the rest of the crew, could not believe this. To them, it was definitely something other than a bear. To them, there was only one other possibility of a creature that could have that kind of behavior. It was hairy and moved like a human on 2 feet. Mireya, being a detail-oriented scientist, had her own perspective. What she found most compelling about the video was the movement of the creature. The way that the head of the creature looked around before walking off was most interesting to her. The creature had head-to-floor vertical movement, and with her expertise, Mireya knew that a bear could not do that.
Those legs look long and lean. I mean, that just doesn't look like, they don't look like bear legs.
It didn't look like a bear head either.
No.
On top of that, based on what the crew knew about the animals in the area, Mireya could not think of any other animal out there that would move like that. To her, Russell may have actually found something to help in their research. As exciting as this was for them, Mireya knew the cold truth that this would not be convincing enough to the scientific community. For the longest time, modern scientists have openly rejected the mere idea of the existence of the creature. So to play by their rules, the crew knew they had to get something more convincing. But this was no ordinary expedition. That night, something shifted around camp. The forest, once full of sound, turned quiet in a way that didn't feel right. The kind of silence that presses against the skin and makes one's breath feel too loud. Russell and the crew were still going over the footage, frame by frame, when the low hum of an engine broke the stillness, distant but growing closer. A black SUV rolled down the dirt path, its headlights cutting through the trees, and from it stepped 2 men in dark suits. Their shoes were too clean for the mud around them, their faces blank and unreadable, like they were made for silence. They didn't look like park officials, and they carried themselves like people used to being obeyed without question. One of them flashed a badge that had no agency name, only a symbol that no one recognized, and their tone was flat as they asked to see the research progress the crew had made. Mireya could feel the tension rise, the weight of something bigger than their small field projects settling over the camp, and for the first time, the excitement they had felt earlier started to taste like danger. They copied the footage to a drive, their eyes moving quickly across the screen, as if scanning for something specific, something they already knew was there. Then they whispered among themselves, too low for anyone to catch a word before shutting the laptop and stepping back, saying, It's not strong enough to be of any use. They turned to leave, but one of them paused at the edge of the camp, his eyes catching the firelight just long enough to reveal something cold behind them, and his voice came out quiet, almost like a warning carried by the wind, saying, "We'll be in touch." Then they were gone, the SUV swallowed by the night, leaving behind tire tracks and a feeling that the forest itself had been listening. Mireya stood still for a long time, her mind racing through every possibility. But deep down she knew they had crossed into something they weren't supposed to touch, and whatever truth they were chasing had just looked back. After the agents left, the crew knew they were so close to uncovering one of the greatest mysteries of humanity, and instead of chickening out, they decided to get to the bottom of it. A new strategy. Instead of chasing the elusive creature, they decided to let the creature come to them. But for this strategy to work, they needed bait. Russell decided to go. As he surveyed the woods, Bryce and other crew members were tracking his every move. At first, everything was good. The surveillance array looked good, and they could clearly see Russell. Seeing that they were not getting much action, Russell decided to walk further into the woods, and then it appeared. From behind the trees up the hill, they saw a creature moving fast towards Russell, and it was not Mireya. Seeing this, Bryce and the team quickly radioed Russell, who, upon receiving the message, asked for guidance from the team since it was hard for him to see anything. The creature was coming from the east side of Russell. It was about 50 yards away, and it was closing in fast. While following the trail, Russell heard some noises. Something had definitely been there, and they had left signs around, not to mention a pretty strong stench. The stench was so familiar to the one the crew had encountered in their Alaskan expedition. With these signs, Russell knew that they were in the presence of Bigfoot. The closer he got to where Bryce had told him that the target was, the weirder and louder the noises got. But Russell was not about to lose his target. Knowing that by now, the creature ought to have been really close, Russell went in the direction of the weird noises. But as he got closer, he heard something break a branch about 100 yards from him. After asking how long he was away from the creature, Bryce informed him that if he stayed that course, he would be able to intercept the creature. Hearing this, Russell decided to move towards where the creature was thought to be. On the other side of the mountain, Mireya was following a heat signal they had seen a bit earlier. Bryce did some surveillance for her, and he noticed not one, but two different heat signatures. The woods were dark, and it was raining heavily. This made seeing really difficult for Mireya, and she could mostly rely on the visual feedback from Bryce. Mireya got closer to the zone she had been told about to get more information. Although they were trying their best to get the information, the weather conditions made it very difficult for them to see anything. But there was definitely something close to Mireya. When Bryce asked her if she could see anything, Mireya said that she could not see or hear anything due to the weather. But the situation was getting worse. Bryce and the surveillance team were losing the other signature between the trees due to the fog, and for this reason, they told Mireya to continue walking in the same direction and that she would be able to connect with the creature as soon as possible. To be honest, this was a risky move for Mireya since she had two targets, and one had gone missing. If that's not scary enough, she was walking straight towards where the creature had last been spotted. Using a flashlight, Mireya was trying to see if there was any movement in the trees or in the direction she was moving. But there was one problem. Everything was working against them. The area she was walking in was extremely steep and extra slippery because of the rain. And to make matters worse, she could not really hear whatever was going on around her clearly due to the rain. It's like she was going in blind. The psyop. By morning, the rain had stopped, but the forest still felt heavy, soaked in that strange silence that follows a long night of tension. The air was thick with mist, clinging to the tents and the trees like a shroud, and no one had really slept. Mireya sat hunched over the monitor in the base tent, the pale blue light of the screens reflecting off her tired eyes as she loaded the data from the night before. Her hands were steady, but her breath wasn't, because even before the footage began playing, she could feel it, that quiet pull of dread that comes when the truth is about to surface. The first thermal images appeared grainy and washed out by rain interference, nothing more than bursts of red and yellow flickering between tree lines. She zoomed in, adjusting filters, isolating motion patterns, her face tightening as something began to form on the screen. In the lower right corner of one frame, the heat registered differently, not like an animal, not like a human, but something in between. Its outline was broad, its shoulders uneven, and its head dipped slightly forward as though it were scanning the ground. When she froze the frame, every small detail sent a chill through her spine. The long limbs, the curvature of its spine, the way the heat signatures from the hands showed 5 distinct fingers, large and human-shaped. It was standing at the edge of the ridge, motionless, facing toward the camera, as if it knew it was being watched. Bryce came over, his expression darkening as he leaned closer, and together they watched the next frames play out in slow motion. The figure moved again, one arm swinging low and powerful, the other brushing against a tree trunk, and for a split second, the shape of its hand left a clear print of heat against the bark. No bear could do that. No known creature they had ever studied could. The forest seemed to twist around that image, the kind of revelation that doesn't bring excitement but dread, because now there was no denying it. They had captured something real. Mireya sat back in her chair, staring at the frozen frame on the screen, and for a moment, the only sound in the room was the soft hum of the generator outside. The creature's heat signature still glowed faintly in the digital image. Tall, humanoid, alive. She thought of the night before, of how close she had been, walking through that same rain-soaked slope, blind and unaware that this thing had been standing only a few meters from her, watching. That realization hollowed her out, because it meant she hadn't been following it. It had been waiting for her. They called the others over, everyone gathering around the monitors, the tension rising with each new angle the thermal cameras revealed. Another camera had caught it from the side, clearer now, showing its height against the trees, over 7 feet tall, its frame massive, its gait steady. The head-to-body proportion was wrong for a human, yet too deliberate for an animal. It didn't move like something surviving, it moved like something that was aware. Mireya felt the need to archive the footage before anything could happen, so she began copying the files to an external drive, making sure every second was saved. However, the mood around the tent had shifted from excitement to unease, because everyone remembered the black SUVs from before, and no one wanted to believe they would come back. But they did. The cars rolled in just before noon, the same dark vehicles cutting through the forest road like ghosts, tires crushing wet gravel in a slow, deliberate crawl. The men stepped out again, same suits, same unreadable faces, the same badge with no name. They didn't explain their presence, didn't ask questions. One of them simply reached for the laptop, their gloved hands moving with precision, as if they already knew what to delete. Mireya tried to object, but her words fell flat. Her voice caught in her throat when she saw the look in their eyes, calm, practiced, and absolute. The screens blinked, one by one, as the files disappeared, entire folders vanishing in seconds, their evidence erased before they could even understand how. When Bryce checked the backup drives, they were empty too. It was surgical, flawless, terrifying. One of the men leaned close to Mireya's workstation, his voice low and measured, and told them they were forbidden from discussing what they had recorded and that the footage was now classified under the protection of an undisclosed department. Then he looked at her, just long enough for her to understand the warning without him having to say it again. When they left, the silence they left behind felt worse than their presence. The camp, once full of ambition and curiosity, felt smaller now, like the forest had swallowed it whole. For days afterward, the crew spoke little, each of them carrying that quiet fear in their own way. Mireya could barely sleep, haunted not just by the image of that towering figure, but by the faces of the men who had taken it from them. And for the following weeks, she noticed cars following her on the drive back to town. Weeks later, she appeared on a televised discussion about wilderness research, her name announced alongside her credentials, her smile practiced and thin under the studio lights. The host asked about the expedition, about what it was like searching for something so elusive, and Mireya's answer was careful, measured, almost hollow. She spoke about the terrain, the rain, the teamwork, but never once mentioned the figure in the thermal image. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap the entire time, her knuckles pale, her eyes darting to the edges of the stage every few seconds, as if expecting someone to be there. Even through the makeup and the bright lights, she looked pale, uneasy, like someone who had seen too much and knew what would happen if she said the wrong thing. After the show, she walked through the quiet parking lot behind the studio, the air cold and still. Across the street, a black car sat idling with its headlights off, its windows tinted darker than the night around it. But why watch her this much despite warning her? Even though the government keeps denying the creature's existence, they've been quietly studying it too. The FBI's research of Bigfoot. It's been confirmed that even the FBI got in on the chase for answers for the existence of Bigfoot when its rumors of being spotted were at their peak. According to the newly released file on Bigfoot, which arrived at the FBI records vault on June 5, 2019, the agency was involved in at least one particular incident in Bigfoot history. The feds analyzed a biological sample that at one point was thought to belong to Bigfoot. But where did they get the sample? In the 1970s, Peter Byrne, a Bigfoot investigator who was then the director of the Bigfoot Information Center and Exhibition, followed up on a possible credible sighting of the mythical creature. During this expedition, According to reports by the Washington Post, Byrne acquired a sample of several hairs and some skin believed to belong to Bigfoot. Following this, Byrne wrote to the FBI several times in 1976 asking if they'd perform an analysis of the hairs, which Byrne noted that his group was unable to identify. On top of that, Byrne also wanted to know if the FBI had analyzed suspected Bigfoot hair before, and if so, he wished to know what the Bureau's conclusion was. These letters make up the bulk of the file and are now available to the public via the FBI Records Vault. Indeed, the publicly available file primarily deals with Byrne's quest to get the hairs analyzed. It features a lot of correspondence between Byrne, Assistant Director of the FBI's Scientific and Technical Services Division, J. Cochran, Jr., and Howard Curtis of the Academy of Applied Sciences in Boston, with which the Bigfoot Information Center and Exhibition was affiliated. The correspondence mainly consisted of Byrne and Cochran going back and forth, but eventually, the request was finally approved. In a letter Cochran addressed to Byrne, dated December 15, 1976, he wrote, "The FBI laboratory conducts examinations primarily of physical evidence for law enforcement agencies in connection with criminal investigations, occasionally on a case-by-case basis. In the interest of research and scientific inquiry, we make exceptions to this general policy. With this understanding, we will examine the hairs and tissues mentioned in your letter." Also in the letter, Cochran instructed Byrne where to send his hair and tissue samples, along with a request for any available background information concerning the source of the specimen he might have had. Unfortunately, according to the Washington Post, Byrne never received this letter. Howard Curtis of the Academy of Applied Sciences, however, did, so he sent along the samples. The analysis was duly performed, with Cochran writing back to Curtis on February 24, 1977, with the results. In Cochran's response, the hairs that Curtis had delivered to the FBI laboratory on behalf of the Bigfoot Information Center and Exhibition had been examined under incident light microscopy for root structure, medullary structure, and cuticle thickness. As if the microscopic screening was not enough already, the hairs were also compared directly with hairs of known origin under a comparison microscope, after which the FBI was, in fact, able to make an inference. What they found was not what they expected. It was concluded as a result of these examinations that the hairs were of deer family origin. 4 decades later, after the screening of the specimen, the Bureau declassified its Bigfoot file. Just to be clear, this is not evidence that the FBI endorsed the existence of Bigfoot any more than the U.S. military's decades-long investigation of unexplained aerial phenomena, popularly known as UFOs, is an endorsement of the existence of aliens. To back this up, Benjamin Radford, a well-known American writer and skeptic, said, "All it means is the FBI did a favor to a Bigfoot researcher. There's nothing wrong with that, but it shouldn't be mistaken for de facto government endorsement of the reality of Bigfoot. Even so, Bigfoot believers may be tempted to see it the way they wish." Radford believed that Bigfoot lovers love the idea that there's a smoking gun in the FBI files. He believes that they are convinced that Bigfoot must be real, otherwise the FBI wouldn't have taken the matter seriously. From uncovering undeniable proof of the creature to being silenced by men in black suits, this is what Mireya Mayor tried to warn us about Bigfoot.